It is challenging to be a Black leader in corporate America today. To watch as DEI initiatives are being scaled back.
DEI at HUD is dead. DEI is dead at the EPA.
To see Black unemployment reach its highest level in years, and to witness prominent Black leaders, particularly women, face harsh criticism and very public dismissals. The anti-DEI sentiment in business, education, and government shows no signs of abating.
We ended DEI in America.
And has sparked conversations at work and at home about the impacts on career and economic mobility for so many. So how do we navigate from here? Bloomberg Businessweek hosted this exclusive roundtable, which centers the voices and shared experiences of influential Black leaders: Ursula Burns, Nicole Reboe, Jacob Walthour Jr., Lisa Wardell, and Chris Williams have come together to examine these issues frankly, share lessons from their remarkable careers, and to offer the next generation a reason for optimism. Guiding this necessary conversation is our colleague, Romaine Bostick. I'm Shertia Brantley, head of inclusive programming at Bloomberg News. Welcome to Businessweek Convenes.
We really wanted to get a cross-section of business leaders across corporate America. And America, it's in a bit of a mood right now. A lot has changed. I think we go back a few years ago, it seemed like to a certain extent the dialogue and discourse we were having was constructive. It seemed like we were making progress. And like a lot of times through history, when we've made progress, we've seen the 2 steps forward, 1 steps back, sometimes 3 steps back. Where are we right now in America? Chris?
I think over the years, we've seen decades of evidence where DEI and the principles that underpin diversity, equity, and inclusion lead to strong outcomes. I think the political discourse, obviously, in the last couple of years has caused there to be a questioning of the validity of the benefits that we've seen empirically from diversity. So we have to make sure that they know that and remember that there are the benefits and that we as diverse individuals have collectively looked to be additive to the equation.
But do you think that perception exists, Ursula, when you look at your success, the success of everyone around the table, that people look upon you and your success as being more a product of government programs and affirmative action and DEI initiatives rather than your work, your skill, and what you put into it?
I think it's not rather than, it's in addition to, right? There's no doubt, based on the way that Black people, women, brown people, poorer people have been treated in this nation from the beginning of time, that we've been denied some of the fundamental rights that we should be afforded. So, over my life, I benefited from programs that were trying to fix what they had denied from me. Once I was allowed to go to school, a reasonable school with reasonable books, have a job, a reasonable job with reasonable pay, I performed as good or better than the other people. We keep having the same discussion and arguing the same argument, which is we're talented individuals. We happen to have a skin color or a gender that's different than the standard. We are still defending like small minds. And one of the most frustrating things is this, that we actually give validity to these small minds, that we have to defend the fact that we are just doing a good job like everybody else is who is afforded the fundamentals, good education, reasonable health care, reasonable food, safe places to live.
They've stolen the narrative.
Yeah, they've stolen the narrative.
They've stolen the narrative.
Not the reality.
Not only our contributions today, but kind of the labor, the creativity that we put into making this country what it is. And so when you hear about this whole concept of making America great,
again,
I feel like they stole something from us.
Yeah.
Right? Because we were very much a part of making America what it is today. But I think you make a very valid point. We make advancements and then we hit one of these periods where we have to deal with the backlash and the retribution, whether it was post-slavery, whether it was Reconstruction, whether it was Jim Crow. Now I think we pay a little bit of a price for the advancements we've made more recently. When you really think about it, right? They've got reason to be worried in their mind. You've got more black senators than ever before. In my industry, you've got more black people running venture capital funds, private equity funds, private credit funds. And so I try to look at the glass as being half full, because we got to remember that we've made significant advancements. It's just a matter of, do we believe the narrative they're telling? Or should we figure out how to keep our narrative alive and well and defend it and make sure it's continually amplified so our children know what the possibilities are for their lives and their careers?
In terms of how the narrative has been taken or changed, the narrative now is it shouldn't be DEI, it's merit. Everything is merit-based. But merit is contingent on access and inclusivity. And what's happened is we're talking about the merit, which we all agree with merit too, and we're talking about it in a vacuum without access. If you don't have the access, you cannot get in the room to perform.
Was this ever really a truly a merit-based society?
Never.
No.
Never.
No. And I think in these moments, there's a sort of a wish to make oneself small. I hear this all the time in executive search. Let me just keep my head down in this very toxic culture. I'm hanging on to the CEO title. I'm just going to hang in there, until this passes. And, it's just not realistic. So the temptation is, yes, you want to hold on to what you have, but you want to hold on to it with your back straight. And that's what I want to leave people with in this moment. We are getting a lot of pushback on things that, you all have talked about, which are kind of ridiculous and, totally created. But how we handle ourselves now is super, super important.
It's interesting. I always find sports analogies are an effective way to highlight the benefits of diversity. We excel when you allow everyone to participate on a level playing field with public rules, with clear guidelines and goals, and you have fair referee and transparent score.
I love what you said, but they're 180 in corporate America.
Right.
Everything that you said, unwritten rules, level playing field, not,
Exactly.
And we have still excelled. So I think there is something about, in this moment, being really, really real, looking at each other in the eye squarely and saying these gains are now being pulled back, and you wonder, the access that you talked about, Lisa, was it really access, or was it really just a sort of like a dip a toe? Because my worry is that the gains that people have made now are quickly disappearing. This is what I hear on a day-to-day basis. Why am I not getting that call for that board seat? Why is someone not calling me about a CEO role? Have I been sort of like disappeared?
But to Nicole's point, there are quite a few people who did not want to have that brave conversation. They did not want to be out in public or on the record talking about these issues. I'm sure you know some of those folks.
Yeah, but I think that we're asking a lot. It's like almost preaching to the converted. So we're sitting around this table. We all kind of look the same. We're all black. First of all, we should have some white guys having this conversation, right? I always say this because it's almost like the victims have to defend themselves. And explain why we're being victimized, right? We have to kind of explain what other people are doing to us. The way I think about this is times 100 years ago were worse than they are today. They're better today than they were 100 years ago.
No doubt.
Absolutely.
And people didn't like it 100 years ago. They don't like it today.
Yeah.
Right now we have a big problem because the guy who doesn't like it runs the damn place, right?
That's the big difference.
That's a huge difference. So I say to all of the people, black, white, male, female, watch it and make sure that the rules that we all want to live by, the democratic rules, the rule of law, the rules of a democracy, work for me, even though you don't like me, or even though I don't look like you. It has to work for me if it's going to work for you too.
Well, I think that's the myth of DEI, that we were the only people that benefited
from it.
And then all the stats in terms of representation and who rose also with civil rights.
Women benefited so significantly
just
from
like,
this.
Exactly. So I don't even feel like it's a victim's narrative. I feel like it's a survivor's narrative, that we are sitting here talking about how we have survived and will continue to survive. And I don't mind that, because there's someone out there who maybe doesn't have a voice, who doesn't feel like they can speak up. And I know those people who are like, I am literally just going to tough it out in this moment. I was one of those people. I'm not even sure what I'm doing here now. I also thought about, who do I want to be in this moment? Yeah? How do I want to show up and be in this moment? And it's scary for some people.
It's scary, but the truth of the matter is, those of us around this table, we don't have anything to fear.
Thank you.
Right? We've had storybook careers. We've amassed more wealth than we probably ever imagined. We've impacted our families, our communities, our colleges. We are, for the most part of the protected class.
We are the them.
But if we don't stand up and speak out, the situation could get worse.
Will get worse.
It will get worse. And so those of us at this table, I know, think about kind of the issue of impact. The question is, beyond the conversation, how do we actually generate more impact?
Do you do that quietly? Do you do that out loud?
To answer that question, I think one of the benefits of the last few years is that we now have data. To your point, like we know this is not a charitable, endeavor to create diversity. We know that 87% of teams make better choices if they're diverse. We understand that 17, 20% more revenue, particularly from innovation. And so I think, to use a business analogy in addition to Chris's sports analogy, it's just like trying to convince your investors and your stakeholders you need to make in-period investments in your brand and marketing that are going to give you out-of-period returns. They hate it, right? They want that marketing money to be aligned with what they're going to get that quarter or the next quarter. But if you don't convince them of that, and you do not invest in your brand, in your company, in your talent, 2 years from now, a year from now, 3 years from now, all of these things that are happening, where these pullbacks are happening, they are going to come home to roost. And so I think for us, our job is to remind people this is a data-driven assignment now for corporate America, and frankly for the federal government too.
There were some corporations that had that proof. I mean, let's just take the retail side.
Right.
You talk about Target opening up its shelves to hundreds of Black businesses. The impact was tangible. Anybody can go, you can look at their quarterly reports. It was tangible. But once Stephen Miller and some of the other folks started coming for them because of their stance, and not just for Black entrepreneurs, but what they did for LGBTQ and other folks as well, I mean, let's just be honest about it. They caved.
There are so many companies, individuals, institutions that have in fact been very supportive of us within our community. And I think it's in our interest to help provide them with support to continue to understand we're here, here's what we can do, let us also show you why and how it benefits you, and then they'll be able to at least have the data, the information that's necessary to continue to try to support. But there's no doubt the cooling effect.
Let me just push back a little bit on the narrative. I mean, we were talking about Target, and obviously there's other companies. But first of all, we have an administration, right, that is bullying corporate America. And what we really should be saying is, well, if they can dictate and determine what happens with DEI, what's the next thing that, the administration or just moving away from democracy and rule of law is going to do, right? But when you look at the fundamental DNA of that organization and other retail organizations, they fully understand that their management and their talent and their workforce has to mirror their communities. Yeah. They know that. It's just really difficult to do right now.
I think we're looking for rationality. Data will not make a human rational, right? And I think this is a lot of what we're seeing, in the face of very good data, in the face of history, in the face of just common sense, capitalism. This doesn't make any sense. And so I think.
What about money, though? What about, increase?
Yeah, but the short-term money, money is not big for these guys at all.
Right.
I mean,
but what about
all you got to do is survive a couple of quarters. Right? This is a lot of thought. By the way, rightfully, that's right. Rightfully so. I mean, I don't want them all to kind of run into the breach and get shot down in their way, and they have to be longer planners. And so I don't actually blame Target as much for their short-term actions as I would blame them for not rolling it back the other direction if they don't do that. I ran a company, as you know.
Yes.
It's not easy to, this is not easy to do. As loud a voice as we are, as loud a voice as we are, there are louder voices from governments, from people who don't agree. So you have to play to all of them. So I forgive them.
Yeah.
I don't forgive them if they literally continue to practice this bad behavior. They have to take a step back, and they've done that. I don't know all of the Target story. But they also know that the facts show that,
foot traffic's down, sales
that's right,
are down.
And if they don't adjust to that, then you just
that.
call them silly, right?
Yeah,
and tell them to close. We don't need
And by
them
the
that
way,
much.
this is across corporate
I was going to say,
America.
That's right, it's not only, exactly.
Absolutely,
That's right.
and they're being targeted.
Yeah, but that's the danger zone when you come out with corporate values. So is it better not to say it than to behave in a different way? Just live it and live what this is what young people see. Especially they're not living their values.
So was it a mistake
So-
for some of these corporations to come out and
Absolutely,
make these
because
declarations?
look at the
I think we got to look at the foundation or the reason why they did it in the first place. George Floyd's murder was horrific. And you remember the level of protest that was going on, not just here in America, but outside this country. And so they responded to their consumers and their consumer sentiment. They weren't responding because their values told them that they needed to do something different. And then I think they figured it out, right? I'll throw money at the problem. And that's what they did. And then when the political climate changed, they pulled back. And many of them actually never. They made statements, but never actually committed to dollars to those causes that they said that they were going to fund.
Even in the world of finance, I know we were picking on Target for a while, but we had major Wall Street banks, Goldman Sachs coming out saying we're going to loan more to minority-owned businesses, invest more in minority-owned businesses, invest more in venture funds and private equity funds run by
all those
minorities.
programs are now gone. All the chief diversity officers are now gone. And they recognize that the IRS, the Justice Department, the SEC, and all the other agencies at the bequest of this administration can be turned against them.
It's not a request. It's not a request. It's a structured set of laws. Some of them have been changed. They better do it. It's called a rule. They got to do
Order
it.
141.17.
Although in fairness to a lot of the companies, I would say the George Floyd tragedy was an affront to many of their values and the values of their employees and constituents. And so there was that support. I think what they found, though, you often can very quickly have a reflex response. We're going to do this. And then they realize it requires more work than just saying we're going to do this. It requires a lot of time to make sure you outreach, have a staff to follow up, to provide the opportunities, identify the partners, and that's where I think a lot of it fell apart. And then we suddenly ran into a period, as we are in today, where it is no longer even acceptable, but it causes more complications to follow up on those programs than it otherwise would have.
But one point you made, Ursula, about this idea of not really blaming the companies. You understand kind of where they're coming from. Did all of you buy into those messages when we were hearing them in 2020 and 2021?
I'm not here to defend these companies. They, at the end of the day, I can make some choices about where I spend my money, where I shop, et cetera. And we should all do that, which we actually don't, but we should all do that. Me as a consumer, I should be talking to Target as well. And I think that running a company is not easy. But I'm not even discussing, I'm discussing us a little bit. Forget all of this thing called Target. There are individuals who run these places. They have to stand and say, guys, I don't agree with this. It's not easy to do. And I may have to follow this rule because the IRS is going to come get me if I don't. But I don't believe or support the actions that this individual or this agency or this approach to business is taking. We've lost all of that. That voice, when I was running Xerox, I couldn't represent 100,000 employees in Xerox. I guarantee you 50,000 of them probably agreed with me and the other 50,000 didn't. So I basically have to kind of ride the middle. But I, Ursula Burns, have a set of beliefs. I have a voice. We've lost the braveness of them saying we have to fund DEI programs. We have to support them in other ways, even if I can't do it this way. We have to support them in other ways because they are important. We've lost all the voice. And I am disappointed in that, right? So we're going to have this struggle until we can convert everybody to actual rule of law, just government, racial equality. Gender equality. We're nowhere near that. All I want to make sure is that the people who are on this side, that on either side have a fair voice, and right now they do not.
Lisa, you were running a company at the time that this happened at Talem, and you put out a letter to your employees addressing this issue, and it was a call to action, was it not?
Yes.
How was that received?
My call to action, and I think this is apropos for today, was let's talk about it, right? And then many companies did. Let's have a town hall. Let's talk about this. We had a town hall, and the rule was you could ask me anything. And then I went further and said, we need to be able to collect the data, back to the data around how having diverse management, we did not have a diverse management across all 5 of our institutions. How do we measure that? And the call to action to my team was to make sure not only hire diverse people, Black, brown, women, but are you making sure that you're looking at the very best universe of people that are qualified? And it's just not possible that universe is all white males. And that changed a lot of the dialogue within the organization. But what I will tell you is we had diversity in our DNA from the very beginning. I think the companies that rolled back quickly or may have gotten in trouble, this was, to your point, this was their, maybe not first time, but they took these big strides and then realized just how difficult it is to ingrain that into your organization.
I just think in all of this talk, we're talking about rollbacks and contractions and all of that, in executive search, these are people. These are life-changing moments for executives of color. I've negotiated many comp packages where the equity stake will change their whole life. Intergenerational wealth is being built in a lot of these opportunities, which is why I do what I do. This is earned success and ascent. And then to sort of have it just, just pulled away, I think is really cruel and it's really harsh. And so when we talk about, the companies making decisions, and I always think about the human behind that decision who is now in a riff. Who doesn't get the calls anymore or what have you. And, just again, thinking about who's listening to us here, what we can share with them that you did deserve it and there will be something else. There has to be that continuity in what we share.
I've been doing this now almost 36 years. And my first job was at Shearson Lehman Hutton. And one of the first people I met when I got there was Chris. And Chris had ahead of him Frank Shepard and George Haywood. And mentorship was a really big deal. And what these guys taught me, and women, because I had people like Wanda Hinton as well advising me, was that I had to outsmart, I had to outwork, I had to outmaneuver, never walk into a room and have a spontaneous conversation with someone who doesn't look like me. I lived on a battlefield. There was all these rules that they gave me, and I followed them for a really long time. And I would say they led to my survival at times, but they also led to my success. But post George Floyd, when I saw my kids out there in the streets, I had to look back on my career and think about the number of times that I swept something under the carpet, that I just turned my head, that I let it roll off my back, because I knew that these earnings were game-changing. But I had to wake up and realize that, okay, your kids are good. But there's a whole lot of other kids out there in the world that aren't going to be good unless you stand up and do something. It had to be about people and profits, not just profits.
But you kind of had to do the first part first to give you the credibility to do that.
To get the resources and
the
to feel
resources
comfortable.
and the credibility, yes.
Taking the risk,
right?
Let's face it, you're taking risk.
But before you said, I'm not sure why we're sitting here. For me, same thing, 3 easy reasons. I have a 24, almost 25-year-old in the workforce. I have a 23-year-old who just graduated who's going in the workforce, and a younger daughter. And I can't afford to not have these conversations because, I have 2 Black men in the workforce that are at the beginning of what you're talking about.
But in answer to your question, though, where you say, are we there because we have the best performance or because we're Black? It's a combination. We are who we are.
I just think that the question is BS. We've never been racially equal. And we're talking like, well, do you think that they're looking at you like they're Black? The only way that they can look at you is the way that we've been taught to look at us. I mean, it's how you feel being a woman. I feel like Ursula Burns being a woman. How do I feel being Black? I feel like Ursula Burns. Everybody else who looks at me feels as though, I guarantee you, you don't have a right to be here. You are here because you're Black. If we think that that is not in the root, by the way, in who we are, but who they are, then we're BSing ourselves.
Does that hurt? I mean, even today?
No, it doesn't hurt. It is.
Did it hurt in the past?
Not really for me.
Okay.
I literally, this justification, we are a racist, sexist society. This country was built on the back of young people, women, immigrants, Black people. That's how we got here. Now, I don't want us to go back and keep blaming them. I just want them to get out of our way at this point. I don't want to have to justify the fact that we can perform equally. We are just people. Citizens, get out of our way, give us an education, access to health care, like everybody else has, and we can move forward.
But part of this also is that we will spin our wheels and talk about this stuff and try and answer the unanswerable when it's already answered.
We gotta pick our heads up, but we also gotta stick our necks out.
For sure.
Yes. But I'm not hating the people who are also taking a different road during this time, sort of consolidating their power, dealing with people that they want to deal with, doing business with people they trust, and not looking for affirmation outside of themselves. So I think this is another moment where it's like, okay, so who are you going to look to affirm ourselves? We look inside first, and then stop looking for anyone else to care. That's sort of where I'm at.
This is where I tell you, sis, this is where I am at. I'm the same place. Okay, if we can get people on our bandwagon, all for it.
Great.
Come on, let's go. But I am tired of answering these questions like, do you feel, I don't care. I mean, really don't care.
My therapist helps work that out.
That's right, exactly.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you. Whoever it is that helps you with this. Our point here is that there are also the people who don't look anything like us, that have a responsibility too. Yeah. Let's make sure that they carry some of that weight. We're helping them.
There are a lot of people looking at some of the hires that we've seen in this current government administration and kind of asking whether those people were even qualified, at the same time pointing at Elisa Cook or Susan Rice or someone like that and saying that, they're DEI hires despite their accomplishments. I asked you whether stuff like that hurts, and I would have to think to a certain extent, it's got to hurt sometimes, right?
Oh my God, if this is not an anomaly, then I'm more than hurt, I'm pissed.
Okay.
Right?
Do you think it's an anomaly?
I hope like hell that it is. Because in all of the badness in our modern times, not in the Jim Crow or enslaved people past, we've had some rule base that made sense. I mean, they didn't follow it all the time. It's all gone now. Literally unskilled, unqualified people who are just associated with other people who can run major departments of our government should not be allowed. And if it's not an anomaly, we are not the worst people that are going to suffer here because we know how to suffer. I tell you, the people out there don't know how to suffer. If this is the way we're going to play the game, where it doesn't matter what the hell you've done in the past, what skill set you have, it only matters how much money you have and what friends you have. No one in this country is prepared. Not enough people in this country are prepared for that kind of rule set. If the people aren't looking at us saying we are the canary in the coal mine, right? We're yelling, but they're going to have to yell too. Then I think we're in trouble.
It does hurt, and I'll tell you why.
Of course it hurts.
Because
it hurts.
When I started my career in investment banking, there was a whole bunch of us. I looked around 3 or 4 years later, and 70% of us were gone. And every year that I continued to do what I was doing, I watched more and more of us walk away. Not necessarily get fired or asked to leave, just walk away. So yeah, it hurt watching some of our very own people, our friends, people we cared about, get pushed out of the industry. because they just couldn't take it anymore. But what I will say is that it hurts in a different way, in that you have so few examples of success at our level, and there's no real means of amplifying that. I feel like for all the success that those of us around this table have had, there are so many people that have not been able to travel the path. And there are so many kids out there who don't know that there is this path.
It's interesting because I think it's good that even among this table, we all have different ways of viewing and dealing with our experiences. For me, I try not to even acknowledge the hurt part. It has nothing to do with anything. I am going to constantly try to convert to what is the opportunity, what is the objective performance data that will hopefully allow me to achieve most of what I'm trying to achieve.
And I think it's okay to acknowledge hurt. It's how you deal with that hurt, right? Do you deal with it in a constructive way, or do you deal with it in a destructive way?
What is the constructive way?
You get up every day and you figure out how to fight, but you figure out how to do it in an intelligent, calculating way. You figure out what your contribution can be. Stop thinking about the problem. What can your contribution be to the solution? Because all of us can do something, whether it's bringing one kid in as an intern, whether it's stroking a check to some nonprofit that's focused on, career development in young people, whether it's serving on the board of a local school board. I mean, there's something that we can all do to change this situation. And to me, it's that hurt that gets me up every day and makes me want to fight. I just know better than to go out there and use my fists.
Lisa, are you having these conversations with your sons? You mentioned 2 sons that just enter the workforce.
Yes, and I think I agree with all of that, and I am really focused on, okay, but what's the solution here, right? So if we think about DEI, what is the access issue and what's the inclusion issue? So I cannot just be either hurt or angry, right? I have to be far more constructive. And for me, in talking to my sons and my daughter, it's about service. And I believe that this is a pendulum. And I think to Ursula's point, we're far more equipped to make it through, the current sort of environment and atmosphere than a lot of folks, and we will.
I have a voice.
Yes. Yeah.
A position, money, followership, whatever the heck it is, and we have to use that, even though it is really expensive, right? It's one of the more expensive things, so just use it all the time, every chance that you can. We're not trying to convert all of these people out here to believe that I'm better than them or equal to them. I don't give a hoot. I just want them to follow, this is why I'm so nervous now,
the rule of law.
Follow the rules.
Yes.
Follow the rules.
But that's been going on for a long time where people haven't cared about the rules.
Yeah, but now we have a structure that's changing, right? We have nowhere to go. We have to be really careful about this. It literally, if they pick you up on the street and send you into a place, you could be there for 21 days, even though the rules say you can't, and we'll send you somewhere and let you out. That should be making everyone nervous.
It is different.
Everyone should be nervous and pick one of these common things and make sure you fight it.
But it's hard to catalyze that fear into action.
I agree.
It's really hard to do that when you don't feel that you have the privilege or access, whether real or myth, to do that. So I just, as I speak to people every day in executive search, and they don't necessarily feel self-empowered to kind of say, you know what, this is a toxic culture. I don't care if it's Fortune 500 or 250, I'm out.
But that's why it's so important for us to be out there and use our voice and pick our cause, and particularly for and around young people. It's critical.
How deep-seated, though, do you think this will be? I mean, we talk about the person in the White House. In theory, he'll be gone, but you have a court system now that seems to be tilting in favor of a lot of his ideas and policies. You have state legislatures that seem to be tilting in favor of those policies. Is what's being done now going to become so entrenched that it's not just your children that might be dealing with, but maybe your grandchildren?
I think there are mindsets that are pro and con DEI that are becoming more entrenched, one side or the other, because aside from race, on every aspect of American life, the differences, the gulf between one viewpoint and another viewpoint is more entrenched and clear. So I think really we have to, again, as always, look at these circumstances and map out our own direction, which we're constantly trying to read the tea leaves for how we're going to navigate and succeed as well as possible. The pendulum does swing to a certain degree, but I think what we're seeing now is unfortunately a very, and we've heard this many times, divided, philosophically divided country, which is concerning for the entire country.
Right.
But
that pendulum analogy, I mean, can you even rely on that in this environment?
Exactly. Also, why do we want to look at something that's going to swing at us? We've got to tell people, look inside now.
We want to look at it if it's coming.
Right, and duck, of course. But I do think, also telling young people to look, drive with your own values. Stop looking outside of yourself for affirmation of what wealth looks like, what does success look like. Define this on your own terms. And I really mean this. I have a 7-year-old, and I'm thinking about AI. I'm thinking about where my son will be in like 20 years. What are the skills that he will need? And I think the pull is to be like, yes, over here, follow this one person. That's not going to work anymore. Look where we are now. And I think.
But don't people need examples? I mean,
here we all are. We're right here. Yeah, absolutely. 100%, Romaine. 100%.
They see them. Yeah, I 100%. They see them.
Do you feel ownership? I mean, of this country? Is this your country?
This is my country.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
This is my country. Absolutely, no doubt.
And this country's been very good to me and my family.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean,
I'm not throwing that out.
So you feel that
each of
ownership,
us have
right?
lived the American dream.
Absolutely.
And the rest of the world.
We ain't going nowhere.
And the rest of the world.
I absolutely. My mother and father came from Panama. I am an American. I am an American, and I'm going to fight for my right in the words that they wrote down. Not the way we're living it. With the amendments to the Constitution is actually not a bad document. I think this is a great set of rules. Let's go for that.
I mean, your story is remarkable. My father had a 7th grade education. My mother had an 11th grade education. And in this country, they were able to raise and put through college 3 kids, own multiple homes and other properties, start their own business, become pillars of the community, and have a street named after them. This is a great country. And I agree with you, Ursula. We have the skill set and the wherewithal to prepare our own. Unfortunately, I think we've done a pretty good job of lowering the bar for some of our children. Fear has been my #1 motivator, right? So I woke up in the morning and sat around the oven because that was the source of heat in an apartment. And so that fear that comes from that experience of waking up in the morning with my siblings sitting around the oven to get heat, that motivates me. And I think that every generation tries to make things easier for the next generation. So I've worked really hard so they don't have to live that way. But I'm not sure in the process.
Be a good thing, though, right?
I'm not sure in the process I've done the right thing by them.
They will have, you haven't lowered the bar. It's a beautiful thing to make something easier to step over. I think, why is it that I think it's
easier.
And that's what I mean.
That's a different
so
kind
now
of
they're,
hard.
rather than worrying about what I
Different
did, sitting there with, the red line bill from Con Ed, the lights went off, you put your headphones on, you put on the flashlight, and you get on and you do your homework. Okay, Kai will not experience a red line letter from Con Ed, but he will experience other things. So now he has the emotional space to take on other things. I'm worrying about if the rent is going to get paid. I don't want my 7-year-old to worry about that. Now he can worry about other things that he will still have to navigate that I faced. So I really say there's no lowering of the bar. You're allowing them to step higher.
If you don't meet your own expectations, and God forbid you fail kind of publicly and objectively, and what you're trying to do, think of how devastating that is and the pressure that puts on a child. Or to live up to the expectations of your parents.
They're going to have their own
and
bars
when you
to
try
leap
to do
over.
things on
I
your
agree.
own, that's
by the
a
way,
challenge for anyone.
both of my sons get stopped. So I hate to tell you, but
I know.
he
Well,
will
that's
have
why
that
I'm thinking
challenge.
let him not worry about Con Ed
get stopped.
because he will get stopped. And God, what I have been able to accomplish if part of my mental health had not been delivered over to dealing with racism, internalizing it, navigating it, showing up in the room, figuring it all out, being competent, overcompetent, blah, blah, blah.
We talk about how the socioeconomic climate is impacting us. I think that there's something even larger impacting our children, and that's social media, right? And how much that places a priority on a different set of values.
But you know what?
Because they think they're making it, when really they're just faking
But
it.
tying that back to this conversation, though, part of where we are today, because you started with where are we today as America, part of where we are today is because they want us to look over there, right? Look over there at diversity when, in fact, you know, AI is changing the workforce forever. Not just our children will have a hard time getting a job. All young people, Gen Z and then Gen A, will have a hard time getting a job. So I think part of our responsibility is to help people understand this is just another look over there tactic. This is all reborn
And our
into
success is
correct.
dependent on the success of America. You ask, are we invested in the success of this country? Absolutely, because
Yes.
we will not succeed at all if the country doesn't succeed. So
Correct.
we have to do what we can to succeed regardless of the headwinds that we face, and try to do what we can to see America succeed.
By the way, one thing, if I can
I
just,
don't disagree.
AI does not mean that our kids will have difficulty getting a job.
They'll just have different jobs.
Yeah. And by the way, I
Agreed.
am starting to be more and more convinced in my private equity firm. We are looking at ways, at not ways like fairy tale, real ways. We are going to add a lot of value and take out a lot of drudgery.
Yes.
Now the thing is that we have to do something useful with that time. We have to figure out what we want. What do we do with that time? And by the way, we better be thinking of things to do with that time. We still have energy problems, we have water problems, we have healthcare problems, a lot of things to do out there, and we just and climate problems. We just can't sit there and go, my God, all the transaction processing work that's, is going to go away. That may be true. Let's make sure we find something to do with these relatively skilled, or at least desirous to be skilled, people and put them there.
But I do think for AI, I mean, wherever people were during the rise of the internet, think back to 99, 2000, where were you in that conversation? Were you where you wanted to be? These are the things we should be thinking about for our communities now. Are they in the conversation now? Because if you use AI, will be like, do you use the internet?
Yeah.
It's going to become a rote question. And that's why I talk about my son Kai. I think about, him using AI and basically what are the skills that people will need 20 years from now, that will be fueled by AI. These are the questions we need to ask, not whether to engage. It's here, it's evil. It's not, it's here. Let's get on with it. And I would love to hear, more Black and brown voices talking about where we are at the intersection of technology right now.
But with everything you said around the table, so does this mean that if for some reason we were to convene this, 20 years from now with, maybe your children or something,
my
or
agentic
your,
person will do
or your
the interview,
agentic hologram
not
or
me.
whatever it's going to be.
I'll be
but
somewhere
is
else.
this going to be a better place for Black Americans, for Black people around the world?
Some of it depends on what we do. I think everyone here is results oriented. So if we sit at this table and only talk about what's wrong, that doesn't make anything better. We have to work with whatever cohort of people and family that we can convene and influence to at least follow steps that help prescribe a path to make our little worlds better and hopefully set an example for others to have a chance of making this dialogue a more constructive dialogue 20 years from now than it is now. We don't know how the winds will change, the impact of AI, the impact of war, the impact of climate change, the impact of clean water, clean air. We know it affects various people and often disproportionately, but we have to control what we can control and also map out plans, maybe that have to change and be reworked every year or two, but map out ways to influence everything that
I
we
say
can.
100% on my dead body. Absolutely.
History repeats itself, and we started this conversation talking about these moments in history where we have to deal with the backlash. Each one of those periods has set the stage for us to bounce back and level up. So I think we're getting back to a period where nobody's given us anything. We need to be accountable, prepared, and perform.
I agree 100%. It will be better for Black
I
people
can
here
level up
and
without
globally.
somebody kicking my ass, though. I can handle a level up without somebody reaching behind.
You want to be coached with love instead of coached
I
with
will coach.
fear.
Well, you can do both, and you can see which one turns out a little bit better. I think what we're doing right now here is also making the change. Just by even sitting around this table talking about this will change the outcomes for sure.
And
You
I
know
think
what
you
mean?
can see we are optimistic, results-oriented, like solution people. We're not whining.
I've had a great life. I've never been reset. If you know what I mean? By the way, and part of it is, I think maybe my mother struggled. We lived in nowhere. We had nothing. She died when she was 49 years old because literally we couldn't get good health care. But my mother was very clear about how much of the control of my life I have. And I think she was lying to me half the time, or telling me a story, not lying to me. She said, basically, it's on you. It's on you. Fortunately, I had all these people around me, Mr. Jordan, Ken Chenault, my husband, my mother, my sister, my brother, who said, keep going. You know, you can, it wasn't like you can do this. It was just, keep going. I mean, just keep going.
Could I join with you in that, Ursula? Because this one thing to land with people is, it's not one person, one mentor, one parent. It is a constellation of people that you surround yourself with in your life, more so now than ever, when people can be on social media and be socially isolated. It's a constellation of people that will get you through to the next phase. And I think the sort of like, I did it myself or was on my own back.
I love that.
It has to be, it has to be a constellation, and we have to reach for, oh God, that sounds corny, to reach for those stars. And sometimes you have to draw them in. But if people could just, stop thinking, well, I've got to do this on my own. It's my promotions, Surround yourself with a constellation of people.
And
What a beautiful constellation
that does
of
not
people.
sound corny. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
And I think that's a great place to end this conversation. Nicole,
You all are in my constellation now.
Thank you, Romy.
Ursula and Chris.
Thank
you.
This is a wonderful
Thank you for
conversation.
doing this.
Hopefully we don't have to have it too many more times.
We'll have it. We're gonna, brother, get over it.
Proactively. Maybe
We'll be doing it over
proactively.
food. Can we do it over food next time?
Yeah.
Maybe not on
That would be
camera.
nice.
We'll do
Yeah.
it. Romy,
Okay.
thank you from
Thank
the
you.
bottom of our hearts
you.
for being our voice
Very good.
in places and spaces.
Thank you.